Courtauld Gallery is essentially a collection of collections. It was formed through a series of magnificent gifts of private collections put together by some of the leading collectors and artistic personalities of the 19th and 20th centuries. Over the next few minutes, I'd like to introduce you to some of these remarkable individuals. Each of the collections at the Courtauld Gallery still retains the imprint of its original owner, and I think that collectively this gives the displays at the gallery their particular character and charm. This isn't more evident anywhere other than in the room that we're standing in at the moment, which is devoted to the Victorian collector Thomas Gambier Parry. Gambier Parry assembled his collection principally in the 1850s and 1860s, and he was one of a small group of collectors in England who were interested in what was then known as the Italian primitives, so essentially early Italian Renaissance paintings or gold ground paintings. Gambier Parry assembled a really important collection of this material with highlights including the painting behind me now by Lorenzo Monaco, which would have been the pinnacle of a large multi-panel altarpiece, other paintings by Fra Angelico, by Bernardo Daddi, and one of my own personal favourites, a lovely little diptych by Pezzolino of the Annunciation. Gambier Parry showed these paintings in a display at his home in Hynham Court in Gloucestershire in a particularly and characteristically Victorian display which was very rich and dense and evocative. This in its own right, I think, would have made Gambier Parry a notable collector, but really what gives him and his collection its sort of charm and character is the fact that alongside these Italian gold ground paintings, he was also assembling parallel collections of decorative arts, an important collection of medieval ivory carvings, but also remarkably, in addition to Venetian and German 16th century glass, a beautiful small collection of Islamic metalwork, including one or two singularly important objects, which I think even he didn't know the importance of at the time that he was buying these things. So the collection has come down to us pretty much intact. It passed to his son and was then bequeathed to us by his grandson, Mark Gambier Parry. And so what we have here is a beautiful and rather rare example of an integrated Victorian collection formed in the 1850s and 60s. Well, it was Arthur Lee's idea that Britain should have a specialist institute dedicated to the teaching and study of the history of art. Lord Lee of Fareham, Viscount Lee of Fareham, approached his friend Samuel Courtauld to help fund the scheme. And in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, he set about building an art collection, which he always intended to leave to the newly founded Courtauld Institute of Art. Lee developed his collection really with this educational purpose in mind, and so it's particularly rich in objects with a complex art historical character, works such as the important Holy Trinity altarpiece by Botticelli and his studio. And equally behind me here, one of a pair of two uniquely complete Florentine Renaissance wedding chests, painted and manufactured in 1472 for a known wedding. And it was these types of objects which Lee felt gave a particular insight into important moments in the history of art. Well, in 1978, the Courtauld received one of the greatest collections ever presented to any British museum or gallery. It was assembled by Count Antoine Zeilin and given to us on his death. Zeilin had studied art history at the University of Vienna and had moved to London, to his home in Princes Gate, on the eve of the Second World War. By that time, he had already started to assemble a collection that would eventually range from an astonishingly beautiful and important early Netherlandish entombment by the master of Flemal to a vast triptych ceiling painting that Vegelin commissioned from the Austrian painter Oskar Kokoschka for the ceiling of his London home. In between that span, the collection touches on many areas, including Peter Bruegel the Elder, whose paintings are behind me just now, but also including Cézanne and Tiepolo and many others. I think the centre of gravity of the collection really is in the 17th century, and above all with the great Peter Paul Rubens, whom Vegelin admired hugely and collected in depth. Vegelin assembled over 30 paintings by Rubens, and they range from oil sketches to tapestry cartoons to early finished works of art and things painted for his own private enjoyment, including our great landscape by moonlight. Well, Vegelin also left us his collection of drawings, which was absolutely the equal in quality and importance to the collection of paintings. It includes works by Michelangelo, Rubens I've mentioned, Rembrandt, Tiepolo, Cézanne, and many others. That collection joined a collection that had begun in 1952 with the founding gift by Sir Robert Witt of over 3,000 drawings, which established the collection of works on paper here at the Courtauld. And the collection has grown rapidly since that time. It now includes about 7,000 drawings and over 20,000 prints, really a very high quality. And a number of people have helped us build the collection in that way. For example, the collection of William Spooner, English watercolours, came to us in 1967. And most recently, just a few years ago, we were given a superb collection by Dorothy Scharf, which included 9 Turners. The Turner collection here now numbers 30 watercolours and drawings and is one of the most important in the country. Well, the collection for which we're surely best known is the wonderful collection of Impressionist and Post-Impressionist masterpieces assembled by the textile magnate Samuel Courtauld. The Courtaulds were a Huguenot family. They had come to England from France in the 18th century and established themselves initially as a very successful dynastic company of silversmiths. Following that, they went into the textile business, and Courtaulds plc, as it became known, became one of the really major international chemicals and textiles companies. Samuel Courtauld became head of the company in 1921, and it was in the subsequent decade that he put together this remarkable collection, one of the greatest of all the private collections of 19th century French paintings. The collection that surrounds me now and behind me is one of the highlights of Samuel Courtauld's collection, Renoir's La Loge from 1874. Well, this collection was his own private collection, and he displayed it at his home in Portman Square, Hume House. At the same time as he was assembling these pictures, he was also buying Impressionist paintings for the nation. And that's a really important point because there was still huge resistance in Britain to this type of art. And in that short period of just under 10 years, he put together a collection that encompasses really some of the masterpieces of French painting of the 19th century and includes all of the major names. Cézanne I've mentioned, Renoir, Manet's great bar at the Folies Bergère, Van Gogh's self-portrait with bandaged ear, and many others. So it is really a unique collection in this country. Samuel Courtauld's focus was absolutely on Impressionism and Post-Impressionism. And although he did buy this wonderful Modigliani nude from around 1916, he wasn't really interested in the art of his own time, in the art of the 20th century. Happily, there have been a number of collectors who have helped us build that area of the collection. Perhaps most famously, Roger Fry, the critic and painter who did so much to promote awareness of modern French painting in this country. But also in recent decades, Lillian Browse, the art dealer, and Dr. Alistair Hunter, both of whom gave significant collections of 20th century art. But if the truth be told, I think the collection is still slightly hesitant in this area, and it isn't yet of the quality of the great Old Master and 19th century collections. But I have to say that looking at the great acts of benefaction that have built up the collection over the last 75 years, I am confident that other collectors will follow the lead of some of the individuals I've talked about today and will help us extend the collections yet more fully into the 20th century at the very highest level of quality.